Hey everybody, it's Blair here at Time Trades. Thanks for joining me this weekend. It's Saturday, December 3rd, and this is your weekly video. We're going to kick things off with a review of last week's forecast as usual, and you can see it on the screen here. It's this yellow path. Now, I drew it for about 3 weeks, I think, last weekend, and based on the price action this week, I think I would have to give myself probably an A- or so. It turned out really quite successful. Mostly because of the big pump after Powell's speech on Wednesday. So we were looking out for some topping behavior this week. We definitely saw a top in price. We're not seeing any divergences in the Chaikin money flow. That's the green line down here. It's a standard indicator that I've come to use quite a bit to help identify some of these terms. So I think the commentary from last week remains valid about looking out for a top. And I'm going to go through and amend this future-looking forecast here in the next few minutes. So coming up this week, it's a pretty light week with respect to news. We've got the producer price index on Friday, but the following week is a huge week for news with the CPI on December 13th and then the FOMC meeting on Wednesday the 14th. So those are going to be it's going to be a very eventful week, and in my opinion, this is where things are going to accelerate downwards, and I'll help to explain why shortly. Okay, so the reasons for the top that we outlined last week were number one, a CMF divergence. So back here on Friday, we were seeing this downtrend in the Chaikin money flow. Now, that reason has evaporated. We're seeing some strong confirmation here of this new high in the Chaikin money flow, so that indicates that volume is supportive of the rally. And so that was one of the three reasons for a top that we outlined last week. That reason is no longer valid. The other two reasons remain valid. The second reason was that we were between a Gann wave blue, that's the blue line here, and a Gann wave green. And based on recent history, we see a lot of indications where price tops in this zone. Okay, so that remains valid. Of course, we're going to have to see the price action next week to confirm that, this topping behavior did indeed occur. So that reason is still valid and still pending confirmation. And the last reason we gave was declining Mercury speed as Mercury slows down into its retrograde cycle. Of course, it orbits, when I say Mercury speed, I'm referring to geocentric speed or speed relative to Earth. So the apparent speed of Mercury as seen from Earth is going to slow over the next few weeks. And then we've got the PPI coming up this Friday morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. That is actually occurring during a bearish intraday window. Now, I mentioned these intraday timing windows in last week's video. This is a kind of a new addition to the analysis toolkit. And I mentioned that the FOMC speech was occurring during a bullish intraday window, and the results are pretty clear that yes, indeed, we got a bullish reaction there. Non-farm payroll release on Friday also occurred during a bullish intraday window, and we did not get the reaction we expected there. We saw a gap down that was actually closed, almost closed during the course of the day. So these bullish and bearish intraday windows seem to have a not too bad hit ratio. 50% is pretty solid. So we're going to incorporate that into this PPI analysis as well. With this PPI release happening during a bearish intraday window, that's going to put a bearish interpretation on that news release, and we'll see how that turns out. Okay, so let's build a new forecast here. We're going to update what we're tracking as usual. We've got the Mercury cycle and Mars cycle is coming up into some interesting time periods. So the Mercury cycle we can track here on the Time Trades web application, and just by turning on short-term waves. This is the yellow line, that's Mercury's speed. So you can see it's declining here into its retrograde cycle that happens, 3 to 4 times a year. And often people tend to be fairly aware of Mercury retrograde, but definitely less aware of the what happens slightly before it actually goes retrograde. This tends to have some predictive power over price, as price does tend to decline following Mercury's declining speed, even if it's still technically not retrograde yet. So we're coming into that time zone where Mercury slowing will start to have some effect on price. And in addition, we're also looking closely at these Gann waves, right? So we've got Gann wave yellow coming up December 12th. So that is Monday, a week from Monday. And then after that, we've got Gann wave blue, December 27th. And there's lots of interesting astrology happening over the next few weeks. On Wednesday, we actually have a rare alignment between the moon and Mars. So the moon and Mars are going to be at the same longitude and the same declination relative to the equator. So it's going to be like an eclipse where obviously the moon and Mars are visually in the exact same spot in the sky on Wednesday, and that also corresponds with a full moon. So that's some very interesting and rare astrology, however you want to describe that. That's happening this Wednesday. Then, of course, we've got winter solstice coming up December 21. And we've got the Gann waves that are going to be starting their decline from yellow into blue through in the period from December 12th through December 27th. In addition to that, just this past week, Earth and Mars made its closest approach in the orbital cycle. So Earth was closest to Mars on December 1st, and now we're starting to separate away from Mars. Based on some of the research I've done on that cycle, that indicates potential for a low over the next few weeks. So based on all this, let's update our forecast here, incorporating all of this information. And I'm just going to turn on all of the prior forecasts as well that I've made, just so that, there's some accountability here about the accuracy of these forecasts. Obviously, they're not perfect, never will be. And I always want to remind you to trade price first and not these yellow lines that I draw on the screen. So price, of course, is always the #1 priority when it comes to trading. All right, so we've got some of the forecast history here. Some of these have been pretty good, some of them not so good, but that's all there and shared for your review. And let's update this forecast here, taking into account everything that I just mentioned. So let me just unhide that, and I'll go over the rationale for why this yellow line is what it is, okay? So this new yellow line here replaces the old one. So I'm going to delete the old one. The first thing you'll notice is it's got a little bit more of a wiggle this coming week. That's because of the mix of bullish and bearish aspects and that we see. and also recognizing the fact that tops do tend to take time to construct. You know, we need to create that topping structure. We need to see some more divergences with the oscillators and indicators that we use. We're not seeing divergences yet in Chaikin money flow, and we are seeing kind of a decline into the Friday PPI number, because the PPI is going to be released during one of those bearish intraday cycles. So that's the rationale for this yellow line starting to go down here. And then we've got a low in this time period here. And the reason for that is based on it's really based on that Mars cycle I was talking about. And after Earth and Mars make its closest approach, then there tends to be a period where we see prices make a low. And I've refined that low window here. And you know, this is, I guess, a rough estimate of price. I don't spend a lot of time focusing on price, to be honest. So treat the price target here very loosely. The time target is where I spend most of my time and thought process. So we've got a time target here between December 19th and December 27th. And the reason for that is I wanted to capture kind of the last quarter, I guess, of the Gann wave cycle as we go from yellow down to blue, right? So that tends to be a common location for lows in that part of the cycle. So we want to take advantage of that. And also, of course, we have winter solstice on the 21st. So I centered the low around that. And just for review, if we go back to June, we can see the summer solstice around June 21st. Also, I mean, it didn't tag a low to the day, but it was within 2 days, right? So that's pretty solid. So we see these major declination oriented events like solstice and equinox do tend to have an impact on price. Okay. And also, I just, when it comes to the price location of this green box, I just located it just above the magic level here at 10,525. Could be lower, could be higher. Again, lots of uncertainty with respect to price here. If things really get out of hand, we could even see it, you know, go down here to this white magic level at 9,000. That's not out of the question. But after that, after this time window, I'm really quite bullish. And again, this is because of some of the work that I've been doing around Mars and around Mercury. So there's a Mercury cycle that just wrapped up, and that tends to create periods of bullishness, especially since we're coming out of Mercury retrograde here. So if we flip back over, we can see Mercury retrograde wraps up around January 6th, and that is indicated by the yellow line here on the time trades web application, and then it starts to accelerate forward. The other thing I'll point out is the blue line here. The blue line is Mercury and Venus separation. So the distance between those two in degrees in the sky. So this also tends to align with pivots plus or minus a few days. So you can see here when there's inflections in this, it aligns with recent pivots. So we're going to have another one of these pivots coming up December 19th. So like I said, lots happening in the sky that we can correlate with stock price behavior. This is the reason for my bullishness after this, really after the winter solstice and the Gann wave blue here around December 27th. I think things could push up through mid-January. And it could top out at this Gann wave yellow or continue on to the Gann wave green here on January 17th. We've got a few weeks, of course, until that happens. But this is kind of the rough outline of price that I'm tracking, and we'll update this every week as we move forward. So yeah, this is all based on really Mercury and Mars cycles are the primary influencers of this forecast yellow arrow. All right, so that's our new forecast here, and that covers us for really the next 6 weeks. So it'll be exciting to see how that plays out. All right, so we've covered a lot of good stuff. Let's flip over to time trades here, and we'll just take a look at indexes, stocks, bonds, the dollar, all that good stuff. So we've got the Qs. Now, what are we seeing here on the Qs? We're seeing some pivot lows again, right in our low window in the forecast that we just drew. And we've got a pivot high over here in mid-January. We've got a contradiction here in the forecast because we're seeing moves down right around a pivot high. So this could be one of those inversions where you know, we get a move, but in the opposite direction. So that's always something that we need to be cognizant of when interpreting these time trades forecasts, is they are directional, and when they're wrong, they're often 180 degrees wrong. Okay, let's take a look at spiders. Spiders is showing a pivot coming up December 14th. So that's right now showing as a pivot high, and then pretty bearish after that, coming into you know, just the week after Gann wave blue here, December 28th, 29th, 30th, late in December. So we'll see if this comes to play. Again, we see a decreasing down pressure heading into late January and another pivot high here. So again, that's roughly in line with our forecast, and decreasing down pressure. I'll point out to those of you that are new here, decreasing down pressure does tend to align with prices going up. Okay, so as the down pressure in the forecast backs off, prices will often go up into that. So this is what we're looking at here for the coming week. We see a pivot high over here, December 14th, and another potential one, December 9th. All right, that's the spiders. Let's take a look at the Dow, which of course has been very strong and exceeded the August high this past week. Really what we're seeing here is a very clear forecast for a move down into late early January. Now this is kind of the reverse of what we're forecasting based on the logic I just shared with you. What we're forecasting for is really a move up after this Gann wave blue area, December 27th into January. So we've got the pivot highs here in January. Where there's a contradiction is the move up here. So we'll see how this evolves, but again, there's definitely directional uncertainty here with the Dow forecast. Okay, let's take a look at bonds. Bonds have had a huge week this week as some of the weaker economic news and dovish statements came out from Powell on Wednesday. So we see the 20-year bond moving up quite strongly here, and there's forecasts for more strong moves coming up. So especially after, you know, mid-December, right? You know, we see peak pivot low December 19th, and then we see this wave of green. So of course, as bonds move up, rates go down, this would be generally bullish for the markets. And if this comes to pass, this would align with our overall forecast. All right, let's take a look at the shorter term bonds, the 7 to 10 year, very similar to the TLT. Again, we've got lots of green here, lots of waves up, and then we also have this this pivot low December 19th, right in that time window we're talking about for a potential stock low. And then after that, bonds pushing up strongly into early January. Let's take a look at the dollar. All right, so the dollar is interesting here. It's been much weaker than I thought. It was so strong coming into September, October. Just got crushed as some of the economic softness started to reflect in the data, and then we get the dovish statements from Powell. So here we are looking at it coming down in the past week. We see a potential continuation for that, potential pivot high here December 15th, but then further weakness heading into January, and just wave on wave of weakness in the dollar. And again, this would support our forecast for stronger stocks heading into January. So I see this as generally in alignment with that forecast that we just drew. Okay, let's quickly take a look at some stocks here. We've got Apple. Apple is reflecting our forecast pretty well. Pivot high December 7th, and then moves down here into December 20th, December 23rd, that area. So this is exactly where we drew that potential for a low in stocks, and then we see the down pressure backing off and a pivot high January 9th. So let's see how that plays out. Apple seems to align pretty well, though. Google. Google is, I wouldn't say this aligns very well with our forecast. We've got a lot of up pressure still coming into December 12th in this Gann wave yellow. And then that backs off a little bit. I'd like to see a little bit more red here. Maybe these moves up will invert and point down instead. And maybe these moves down will invert and point up instead. So we've got the moves in the right place, but they're not in the right direction to align with our forecast. I do like this pivot high over here, February 1st. So there's general alignment there. So again, we have to watch this closely to see how this evolves. Microsoft. Now, Microsoft was looking very bearish last week, but what happened was that bearish forecast inverted, and it turned into bullish price action in reality. So as I always say, these things need to be considered in the context of price. Price is always first in your trading and analysis. So we did get that inversion. We did get a strong push up this week, and after that, we're really not seeing much in terms of confident forecasts. We see a few low probability moves down. Honestly, I'm just going to discount those because they're 33%, 26%. The probability isn't high enough really to put much confidence in those. All right, before we take a look at crypto, let's take a look at one of my favorite vehicles to trade, natural gas. So we saw the up probabilities really decline hard this week, and natural gas price followed. Notice the absence of red, so there was no red bars up here, but still the forecast was for declining up pressure, and price followed. Now, I would be looking to consider adding some natural gas after mid-December, where we get this forecast pivot low. And we've got a couple of nice up waves here, peaking December 20th and January 12th. So that's still on my radar. I don't have a position in it right now. I was able to do pretty well on this last pump here. So just watching it closely and watching it set up for the next pump. All right, let's take a look at crypto. We've got Bitcoin. Now, what's interesting here with Bitcoin is we've got a pivot low December 4th, and then after that, we've got declining down pressure. So Bitcoin may pump up into December 10th or so, where that Gann wave yellow is. So that's definitely something to watch. I probably wouldn't be adding long-term positions here right now. It just feels like there's still more bad news yet to come, or more potential for bad news yet to come on Bitcoin. I may be wrong. That's pure opinion. But we are starting to see a return of some green up probabilities early in the new year. Let's look at Ethereum. Again, there's not a lot of confident forecasts here. We do see a low probability pivot low December 12th, and then some low probability moves down. But I like the way it's hanging out here, pretty close to this magic level. If I were to see any sort of strong move up over the magic level with expanding Chaikin money flow and expanding volume, that might be a good opportunity to go long here. But that's just purely a price-based observation, not time-based at all. Litecoin's been very bullish lately. It seized this white magic level here at 76 and has consolidated above it very strongly. So this is very bullish price action here on Litecoin. We've got expanding probabilities of up days coming up through mid-December. Let's flip over and take a look at Litecoin here in TradingView. I want to see the Chaikin money flow to see what that looks like. So if we take a quick look at Litecoin, this is a very bullish CMF line. We can see it's making higher highs, confirming this move up. It's not really making a divergence down yet, and it's staying above this white magic level here at 76, which is really critical. So I like the volume action here. I like the fact that the square of 12, these two EMAs are starting to turn up. So I would put this on my watch list to buy on dips for sure. Okay, and let's wrap things up with the Indian stocks. We've got the NIFTY index here. The NIFTY looks to me like it's due for a pullback. We're seeing a cluster of probabilities of moves down that are increasing as well, and that aligns roughly with our time window for a low between kind of the 19th and the 26th here. And so that's, I think, an opportunity to take profits and maybe reposition at lower prices a little bit later in December. And we can take a quick look at BANKNIFTY, which again is very similar, actually a bit more confident. We see a pivot high coming in here right on the actual high, December 1st. So this looks like an accurate forecast. Now, keep in mind, pivot highs don't repaint after just one day, right? They generally need about 3 weeks to confirm. So this is still a forecast pivot high from the model, and it looks like it tagged a high to the day so far. And we've got a bigger cluster of probabilities of moves down heading into December 19th. So again, good time to take profits on BANKNIFTY. Okay, so that's it for me for this week. Thanks for joining. Have a great weekend and good luck trading. Trade safe, and we'll talk to you again next weekend. Thank you. Bye now.